When my son got married, I didn't tell my daughter-in-law that the house they were living in was mine. And it's a good thing I didn't, because shortly after the wedding, my daughter-in-law and her mother tried to kick me out of my own home. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard their voices in the living room. Chloe and her mother, Linda, had arrived about an hour earlier and were already measuring the walls, talking about paint colors, new furniture, and how they were going to rearrange everything, as if the house were already theirs. I walked out with the coffee pot in my hand and found them standing in front of the big dining room window. Chloe saw me and smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile people give you when they've already decided something about you without asking. "Eleanor," she said to me, and she didn't even use Mom or Mrs. Lopez like she had the first few months. Just Eleanor, as if we were friends the same age. "Mom and I were just thinking that this house is way too big for you all alone. And since Adrian and I live here now, it just makes more sense for you to look for a smaller apartment, something comfortable for one person, something more appropriate for your age." I just stood there, holding the coffee pot. I could feel the heat of the glass burning my palm a little, but I didn't let go. Linda, her mother, nodded as if she were agreeing with something very logical, very reasonable. "It's just that you'll be going up and down stairs here, Eleanor," Linda added, with that fake voice of concern. "At your age, that's dangerous. Besides, we need the space. Chloe and Adrian are going to have children soon. And you, well, you've already done your part as a mother. It's time for you to rest." Rest, as if resting meant disappearing. As if I were an inconvenience that had to be stashed somewhere else so they could live comfortably in what they believed was already theirs. I didn't say anything. I just set the coffee pot on the table, looked at them both, and went to my room. I closed the door slowly, sat on the edge of my bed, and took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3 times. That's what my friend Margaret taught me in the yoga group we go to on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. "When you feel something burning you up inside, breathe," she told me once. "Breathe and think before you act." And I breathed. But not because I was scared, not because I felt small. I breathed because I knew, in that exact moment, that I had to be very smart about what came next. Because the war had already started. Chloe just didn't know that I already had my weapons stored away. You see, when Adrian told me he was getting married, I was happy. I truly was. My son was 38 years old. He'd had relationships before, but nothing serious. And when he met Chloe at work, I saw how his eyes lit up when he talked about her. How he came home early just to get ready to go pick her up. How he smiled while texting on his phone. I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to have a partner, a family of his own, because I had already lived my life. I had been a wife. I had raised my son. I had worked for 30 years as an administrator in a government office until I retired 5 years ago. And now, at 70 years old, I had my routine, my friends, my Saturday morning walking group, my Wednesday computer classes where I learned to use WhatsApp, Facebook, and even FaceTime with my sister who lives in San Diego. I wasn't some old lady lost in time. I had my life. But I also had a mother's heart that wanted to see her son happy. So, when Adrian told me, 2 months before the wedding, that he and Chloe needed a place to live because the rent on their small apartment was just too high, I didn't hesitate. I told them they could stay here, in this house, that there was plenty of room, that as long as I lived, this house was their house too. But I didn't tell him something. I didn't tell him that the house was still in my name, that the papers, the deed, everything was still legally mine. Because at one point I had thought about transferring the property to him. Yes, but something inside me, something I couldn't explain at the time, told me, wait, not yet. And I waited. And it's a good thing I did, because from the day of the wedding, everything changed. Chloe arrived with 3 giant suitcases and put them in Adrian's room as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Fine, I thought. They're husband and wife. It's normal. But then she arrived with boxes. Boxes and boxes of her things. Clothes, shoes, decorations, pictures, and she started arranging them all over the house. In the living room, in the dining room, in the hallways. One day I came downstairs and saw she had taken down the portrait of my late husband that hung in the entryway. She had replaced it with a large, gold-framed mirror. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I didn't say anything. I just took the portrait up to my room and put it on my dresser. Adrian didn't say a word. I don't even think he noticed. 2 weeks later, Chloe started moving the furniture around. The little table where I kept my plants was moved to the garage. The armchair where I sat to read in the afternoons was pushed into a corner, almost hidden behind a huge plant she brought in. And when I'd come home from my walk or from Margaret's house, I'd find everything different. As if every day my house looked less and less like my house. But still, I didn't say anything, because I thought, well, she lives here now too. She has a right to feel comfortable. I'm the mother-in-law. I don't want to be the type of mother-in-law who fights about everything. I want my son to be happy. How stupid I was. Because Chloe wasn't trying to feel comfortable. She was trying to erase me, and I didn't see it until it was too late. Or rather, until it was so obvious there was no way to ignore it. The first big sign was when she invited her mother to stay for a few days. Linda arrived on a Friday night with 2 suitcases and a smile I didn't like from the start. It was the smile of someone who knows something you don't. A winner's smile before the game even starts. "Oh, Eleanor, what a lovely house you have," she said when she walked in, looking at everything as if she were appraising its value. "Chloe told me there's so much space here. And since I'm all alone since my divorce, well, I thought I'd come for a few days to keep you girls company. Keep them company. Not keep us company, keep them company. As if I were no longer part of the group. And those few days turned into a week, and then 2, and then a month. And Linda acted like she owned the place. She'd get up late, leave her things scattered all over the living room, use my bathroom without asking, use my shampoo, my lotions, even my good towels that I saved for special guests. And Chloe said nothing. On the contrary, the 2 of them started making plans together. Plans about my house. It was during that second week with Linda in the house that I started to feel something was very wrong. It wasn't just the discomfort of having someone extra in my space. It was the way they looked at me. The way they talked when they thought I wasn't listening. One Tuesday morning, I had left early for my yoga class. Margaret picked me up at 7, like always, and we went together. But halfway through the class, I realized I had left my cell phone at home. I didn't think much of it. After all, I'd be back in 2 hours. But that day, the instructor ended the class half an hour early because of a family emergency. So I got home at 9:30 instead of 10 o'clock. I opened the door quietly because I didn't want to make noise, and that's when I heard them. They were in the living room, Chloe and Linda. Their voices carried clearly from the dining room. "I'm telling you, it's the perfect time," Linda was saying. "She's already old. If you wait too long, it'll get harder. You have to act now while you can still manage the situation." "But she's Adrian's mom," Chloe replied, though her voice didn't sound worried. It sounded like she was thinking, calculating. "I don't know how he'll react." "Adrian will understand," Linda insisted. "You're his wife. He chose you. And if you explain it to him properly, if you make him see it's for the best, he'll be on your side. Men always take their wives' side when they know they're right." I stood frozen in the entryway, my bag still hanging from my shoulder. My heart beating so hard I thought they would hear it from the living room. "Besides," Linda continued, "think about it. This house is huge. 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, living room, dining room, big kitchen, a yard. Why does she need all this space for herself? It's a waste. And you 2 wanting to have kids, starting your life together. It makes much more sense for her to go to a small place and leave the house to you." "But the house is hers," Chloe said, and for a second I thought she was going to defend something. But then she added, "Although Adrian told me his mom promised she'd leave it to him one day, so technically it's almost ours already." Almost ours. As if my house, the house I worked 30 years for, the house where I buried the memories of my husband, the house where I raised my son, was already hers just because my son had gotten married. "Then it's settled," Linda said, in that voice of someone who has just won an argument. "If he already knows the house is going to be yours, it's just a matter of speeding up the process. Talk to Eleanor nicely. Tell her you looked at some nice apartments nearby, that she'll be more comfortable. That way she won't have to worry about maintaining such a big house. And you just push, little by little, until she says yes on her own." "And if she doesn't want to?" Chloe asked. "Then you make her uncomfortable," Linda replied, and her voice turned cold. "Move her things. Take over her spaces. Make her feel like she doesn't have a place here anymore. Old people get tired quickly. They don't like conflict. If you make her life miserable, She'll want to leave on her own. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't surprise. It was clarity. Absolute clarity about what was happening, about what had been happening for weeks. I turned around slowly, left the house without making a sound, and stood on the sidewalk. I breathed. 1, 2, 3 times. Then I took out my cell phone and called Margaret. "Eleanor? What's wrong? Did you forget something?" "Margaret," I said, and my voice came out firmer than I expected. "Can you come pick me up? I need to talk to you. Are you okay?" "Yes, but I need to get out of here right now." Margaret didn't ask any more questions. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. I waited on the corner of my street until I saw her car. I got in, and before she could ask me anything, I said, "Let's go get breakfast. I'll tell you everything." We went to a diner that's near the farmer's market, a quiet place that sells biscuits and gravy and good black coffee. We sat at a booth in the back, and I told her everything. From the day Chloe had suggested I leave, to the conversation I had just overheard. Margaret listened to me in silence. When I finished, she put her hand on mine and squeezed. "Eleanor, that girl and her mother want to kick you out of your own house." "I know. And what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm not going to stand by quietly and watch them erase me from my own life." Margaret nodded. "The house is in your name." "Yes, everything is in my name. The papers, the deed, all of it." "Does Adrian know that?" "No, we never talked about it. He just thinks I'll leave it to him someday." And yes, that was the plan. But I never signed anything. I never did any paperwork. The house is still mine. Margaret thought for a moment. Then she looked at me with that look she gets when she's about to say something important. "Eleanor, you know what you have to do, right?" "What?" "Don't tell them anything. Not yet. Let them go on with their plan. Let them get confident. And in the meantime, you prepare your defense." "My defense?" "Yes. Go see a lawyer. Make sure all your paperwork is in order. Document everything you can. And when the time comes, when you can't take it anymore, then you show them whose house it really is." I just stared at her. Margaret is 72, 2 years older than me, but she's always been the smart one. She was an elementary school teacher for 40 years. She knows how to handle difficult situations. She knows when to speak and when to stay quiet. "You think I should do that?" "I think you need to protect yourself, Eleanor. And if your son isn't protecting you, if he's allowing his wife and his mother-in-law to disrespect you in your own home, then you have to protect yourself." She was right. Margaret is always right. I went home that afternoon with a clear idea. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to be smart. I was going to observe. I was going to document. And when the time came, I was going to act. That night, during dinner, Chloe told me she had seen some very nice apartments near downtown, that they were perfect for a single person, that they had an elevator and everything. That way you wouldn't have to climb stairs. They even have a common area where the residents get together, she told me with that fake smile. You could make new friends, Eleanor. People your age. Adrian was sitting next to her, eating his chicken in silence. He didn't say anything. He didn't defend me. He just ate, his eyes fixed on his plate as if nothing was happening. "Oh, that sounds interesting," I said to Chloe, pretending to care. "Send me the information on WhatsApp." She smiled even wider. "Of course, Mom. I'll send it to you first thing tomorrow." Mom. Now she was calling me Mom. Because she thought she had won. But she hadn't won anything. That night, when everyone else was asleep, I stayed awake in my room with my phone. I Googled property lawyers in my city. I found 3 options. I saved the numbers. Then I opened my photo gallery and started taking screenshots of everything. Of Chloe's messages. Of pictures of my house. How it was before and how it was now. Everything. At 2 in the morning, I fell asleep. But not with fear, not with sadness. I fell asleep knowing the war had begun, but that I knew how to fight too. The next few days were strange. I went about my normal routine, as if nothing was wrong. I got up early, made coffee, went walking with my group on Saturdays, went to yoga with Margaret on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But inside, I was completely alert, watching, noting everything in my head. Chloe sent me the information on the apartments via WhatsApp, just as she'd promised. There were 3 options, all small, all cheap, all in neighborhoods I didn't know. I thanked her and told her I'd think about it. She replied with a smiley face emoji and a heart, as if she were doing me a favor. But things in the house kept changing. Every day, something new. One Thursday, I came home from grocery shopping and found they had moved all the living room furniture again. The main sofa was now against the window. The coffee table I had bought 15 years ago was shoved into the garage, and in its place was a new glass table I had never seen before. "Do you like it?" Chloe asked when she saw me looking. "We bought it yesterday. It's modern. Gives the living room a different feel, don't you think?" "We bought it." She and who? Adrian hadn't said anything. And I didn't say anything either, not at that moment. I just nodded and went to the kitchen to put away my vegetables. But when I got to the kitchen, I saw something that made me stop cold. All my pots, the ones I had used for 30 years, were stacked in a cardboard box next to the refrigerator. And on the stove were new pots, stainless steel, shiny, expensive, pots I had not bought. "Oh yeah," Chloe said, walking in behind me. "We updated the pots too. Yours were looking pretty old, Eleanor. These are non-stick, much better. We're going to donate yours." Donate. My pots. The pots I had cooked in for my husband for 20 years. The pots where I made Adrian his favorite meal every birthday. The pots that held the memory of thousands of dinners, thousands of moments. "I see," I said, and my voice came out colder than I expected. "But those pots are mine. And if anyone is going to donate them, it will be me." Chloe blinked. For the first time, I think she noticed I wasn't completely on board with everything she was doing, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, Mom, of course. Whatever you say. We just wanted to help modernize the house a bit." Modernize. That word again. As if everything of mine was old and needed to be replaced. As if I were old and needed to be replaced. That night, after dinner, I locked myself in my room and took out the house papers, the original documents, the deed that had been in my name for 35 years. I read them completely, line by line. I wanted to be absolutely sure. And yes, there it was. Eleanor Lopez, sole owner. No other name, no other signature. The next day, a Friday morning, I called the first lawyer on my list. A very polite receptionist answered. "Good morning. My name is Eleanor Lopez, and I need a consultation regarding a property matter." "Of course, ma'am. When would you like to come in? Do you have anything available this week?" "Let me check. Yes, we have an opening on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning." "Perfect. I'll be there." I gave her my information and hung up. I felt a strange tightness in my chest. It wasn't fear, it was determination. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of my own life. The weekend was quiet, but tense. Chloe and Linda spent it measuring the walls of the spare room next to mine. The room where I kept my things, my books, my winter clothes, some boxes with photos and memories. "This will be the baby's room," I heard Chloe say. "We'll paint it a light yellow and put a crib here, by the window." A baby. She wasn't even pregnant yet, and they were already planning to take over every corner of my house. They were already erasing me, room by room, space by space. Adrian was acting strange, quiet, distant. Sometimes I'd see him looking at me as if he wanted to say something, but then Chloe would arrive, and he'd go back to his silence. It made me sad to see him like that. My son. The boy I raised alone. The boy I taught to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to be respectful and honest. That boy was now a man who didn't know how to defend his own mother. Or worse, a man who had chosen not to defend her. On Sunday night, Linda made dinner. Without asking my permission, she used my kitchen as if it were hers. She made chicken and green salsa with rice. She set the table in the dining room. And when we sat down to eat, she spoke as if she were the host of the party. "Well, family," she said, raising her water glass as if for a toast. "I want to propose something. Chloe and I have been thinking it would be a good idea to do a complete remodel of the house. Change the floors, paint all the walls, update the bathrooms. What do you all think?" Adrian looked at her, surprised. "A remodel? That costs a lot of money." "Yes, but it's worth it," Chloe insisted. "This house has so much potential. It just needs an update. And we can get a loan. With your salary and mine, we can pay it off in 2 years. A loan. To remodel my house. The house that was still mine. And what do you think, Mom?" Adrian asked, turning to look at me for the first time all dinner. They all looked at me, Chloe with that smile that no longer fooled me, Linda with a challenging look, waiting for me to say something so she could attack, and Adrian, my son, looking at me with exhaustion, as if my opinion were just a formality he had to get through. I think, I said slowly, choosing each word with care, that a remodel is a very big and very expensive undertaking, and that we should think it through very carefully before deciding. But Mom, Adrian insisted, if the house is going to be mine someday anyway, right? You told me so yourself. So it makes sense to invest in it now, so when I inherit it, it's already nice. There it was, the truth, coming out all on its own. Adrian believed the house was already practically his, that it was just a matter of time, and Chloe and Linda had used that belief to build their entire plan. Yes, Adrian, I said, staying calm. Someday this house might be yours. But that day hasn't come yet. And as long as that day hasn't come, the big decisions about this house are made by me. An uncomfortable silence fell. Chloe stopped smiling. Linda pressed her lips together, and Adrian looked at me, confused, as if I had just said something completely unexpected. So you don't want us to remodel? Chloe asked, and her voice was no longer sweet. It was sharp. I didn't say that, I replied. I said it's something we need to think about, calmly, without rushing. But we live here, Linda cut in. And there it was, the real venom finally coming out. We also have a right to an opinion about what the house we live in looks like. We, as if she lived here permanently too, as if she had any right to my home. Of course you have a right to an opinion, I said, getting up from the table. But I have the right to decide, because this house is mine. And I went to my room. I closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something like power, like control. Monday morning, I got dressed early. I put on my favorite pink blouse, the one Margaret gave me last year. I put on a little makeup. I fixed my hair, and at 9:30, I left the house without telling anyone where I was going. The lawyer's office was downtown, in a 4-story building. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door that said Law Offices of Gregory Hayes, Civil and Family Law. A man in his 50s, with glasses and a kind smile, greeted me. Mrs. Lopez, please come in. Have a seat. Tell me, how can I help you? And there, sitting across from that desk full of books and folders, I told him everything. From the beginning, from the day Adrian got married to the dinner on Sunday. I showed him the papers for the house. I explained that I had never signed anything ceding the property, that everything was still in my name. Mr. Hayes listened to me intently, taking notes in a legal pad. Mrs. Lopez, he said when I finished, you have every legal right on your side. This house is yours, completely yours. And nobody, absolutely nobody, can force you to leave it or to sign over your property if you don't want to. Not even my son? Not even your son. You can leave the house to him in your will when you decide, or you can never leave it to him. That is your decision. I felt an enormous sense of relief, as if someone had finally told me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't being selfish, that I had the right to defend what was mine. So, what do you recommend I do? I asked Mr. Hayes. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands on his desk, and looked at me seriously. First, I need you to understand something important, Mrs. Lopez. You are under no legal obligation to allow your daughter-in-law, her mother, or even your son to live on your property if you do not wish it. They are there because you allowed them to be, out of your own goodwill, not out of obligation. But Adrian is my son. I know. And I understand this is an emotionally delicate situation, but legally, you hold all the cards. Now, my recommendation is this. Document everything. Record conversations if you can. Take photos. Save text messages. Anything that proves they are trying to pressure you to leave your own home. That could be useful later if the situation gets more difficult. More difficult how? Well, in some cases, people try to accuse the property owner of abandonment or of having verbally gifted them the rights. It's rare, but it happens. If you have proof that they knew the house was yours and still tried to get you out, that protects you completely. I nodded, processing every word. And if I wanted them to leave, can I just ask them to vacate my house? Of course. It's your house. You can ask them to leave whenever you want. If they refuse, then we would have to begin a formal eviction process, but with the paperwork in order as you have it, it would be a relatively simple process." I was silent for a moment. The word eviction sounded so harsh, so cold, but it also sounded like justice. How much would all this cost? I mean, if I needed your help later. Today's consultation is no charge. It's complimentary. If you later need me to initiate any legal action, we can discuss the fees at that time. But to be honest with you, Mrs. Lopez, I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope you can resolve this within the family." I thanked him. I shook his hand and walked out of that office feeling stronger than when I went in. I had an ally. I had information. I had a plan. When I got home, it was almost noon. I walked in and found Chloe and Linda in my bedroom. My bedroom. The door was wide open, and they were going through my closet. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway, and my voice was louder than I expected. Chloe spun around, startled. Linda didn't even flinch. "Oh, Eleanor, you scared us," Chloe said, putting a hand to her chest. "We were just looking at your clothes. You have so many things you don't wear anymore, don't you? We thought we could do a clean-out and donate what you don't need. Who gave you permission to come into my room?" "Oh, Mom, don't be upset. We just wanted to help." "I don't need that kind of help," I said, walking toward them. "And I want you to get out of my room, now." Linda looked at me with that offended expression I had come to know so well. "You don't have to be rude, Eleanor. We were just trying to help you get organized. At your age, it's easy to accumulate things that are no longer useful. At my age." That phrase again. As if I were an old woman incapable of managing my own things. "Out," I repeated, and this time I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. "Both of you, out of my room." Chloe left first, her head down like a scolded child. But Linda brushed past me and looked me directly in the eye. "You're being very selfish, Eleanor. This family is trying to move forward, and you're just in the way. In the way." There it was. The word they had been thinking all this time, but hadn't dared to say out loud. I was an obstacle. In my own house, in my own life. I didn't answer her. I just closed the door when they left and sat on my bed. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was rage, pure rage. And something else. Something that had been growing inside me for weeks and that I could no longer ignore. Exhaustion. Exhaustion from being invisible. Exhaustion from being treated like old furniture. Exhaustion from my own son, saying nothing when I was disrespected. I took out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. Mr. Hayes had told me to document everything, and that's what I was going to do. I recorded a message for myself, describing what had just happened. The date, the time, what they said, how they entered my room without permission. Then I opened WhatsApp and texted Margaret. "I need to see you today. Are you free?" She replied in less than a minute. "Of course. 5 o'clock at the diner? Perfect." The rest of the day, I stayed in my room. I didn't go down to eat. I didn't want to see anyone. I heard Adrian come home from work. I heard voices in the living room, conversations I couldn't make out, and I didn't care. At 4:30, I got ready and left. No one asked me where I was going. They didn't even look up when I walked through the living room. Margaret was already at the diner when I arrived. She saw me walk in and knew immediately something had happened. "What happened, Eleanor?" I sat across from her and told her everything. The visit to the lawyer, what he told me, what happened with Chloe and Linda in my room, everything. Margaret listened in silence, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "Eleanor, you know what you have to do." "What?" "You have to get them out of your house. Both of them. Chloe and her mother. But Chloe is married to Adrian. I don't care. That girl and her mother are disrespecting you in your own home, and your son is doing nothing to protect you. So you have to protect yourself. But if I kick Chloe out, Adrian will go with her. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But you know what, Eleanor? If your son chooses a woman who mistreats you over his own mother, then let him go. Because a son who doesn't defend you, who doesn't respect you, who allows you to be treated like this, that son already lost you a long time ago." Her words hurt because they were true. Adrian was no longer the boy I raised. He was a man who had chosen the easy path, the silence, the comfort of not getting into trouble. And in the process, He had abandoned me. I don't know if I can do it, I admitted, and I felt tears start to form in my eyes. Yes, you can, Margaret said, taking my hand. You are the strongest woman I know. You raised your son alone. You worked for 30 years. You paid for that house with your own hard work. And now some girl who just showed up a few months ago wants to take it all away. Are you going to let her? No. Then I'm going to fight. Margaret smiled. That's more like it. That night, I returned home with a decision made. But I wasn't going to act immediately. Not yet. First, I needed them to dig their own graves. I needed them to get so confident, to do something so obvious, so blatant, that there would be no way for Adrian to defend them. And I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, a Wednesday afternoon, I came home from my computer class and found Chloe in the living room on the phone. When she saw me walk in, she lowered her voice, but she didn't hang up. Yeah, Mom. I'm telling you, it's almost time. Just a matter of time. No, she hasn't said anything yet, but she's giving in. Yeah, when she leaves, we're going to change everything. I already spoke to a contractor to come and see about the remodel. He figures about $15,000 to do it all right. Don't worry, we'll get it from the loan. The house is going to be ours anyway. My blood ran cold. $15,000. A loan to remodel my house. The house they thought was already theirs. Chloe saw me standing there and hurried to hang up. I'll call you later, Mom. Bye. She looked at me with a nervous smile. Did you hear that? Yes. It's just. Well, we already talked to Adrian and he agrees. We're going to apply for the loan next week. The house is going to be beautiful, Eleanor, you'll see. And was anyone going to consult me? Well, it's just. Adrian said you had already accepted that the house was going to be his. Accepting that it might be his someday is not the same as saying it's his now, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. And I definitely did not give permission for anyone to take out a loan in my name. It won't be in your name, Chloe clarified quickly. It'll be in Adrian's name. A $15,000 loan to remodel a house that isn't his. Chloe fell silent. For the first time, I think she saw something in my eyes that scared her. Eleanor, we just want to improve the house. No, I said slowly. You want to erase me. You want me to leave. You want to take what I built. But you're in for a surprise. And I went to my room before she could answer. That night, during dinner, Adrian brought it up. Mom, Chloe told me you were upset about the loan. I wasn't upset, Adrian. I was concerned. Because you are planning to spend $15,000 on a house that is still mine without even asking me. But Mom, you said the house would be mine someday. Someday, Adrian. Someday. Not today. Not next week. And until that day comes, I am still the owner. I still decide what does and doesn't get done in this house. Chloe jumped in. It's just that we don't know what you want anymore, Eleanor. Sometimes it seems like you want us to leave. And there it was, the trap. Waiting for me to say yes, that I wanted them to leave so they could play the victims. But I was learning to play this game. I don't want you to leave, I said calmly. I just want respect. Respect in my own home. After that dinner, things changed. Chloe and Linda stopped pretending. There were no more fake smiles or attempts to be nice. Now they just ignored me. They'd walk past me as if I were invisible. They'd talk loudly to each other about their plans, about the remodel, about how they would arrange the rooms when the children arrived. And Adrian remained in the middle, quiet, uncomfortable, not taking anyone's side. One Saturday morning, while I was on my walk with the group, Margaret asked me how things were going. Bad, I told her. Worse every day. They don't even pretend anymore. They talk as if I don't exist. And your son? My son says nothing. He pretends not to see, not to hear. Margaret shook her head. Eleanor, how long are you going to put up with this? Not much longer, I admitted. I'm just waiting for the right moment. The right moment for what? To show them who owns that house. Margaret smiled. There's my friend, the Eleanor I know. That same afternoon when I got home, I saw something that made me make the final decision. There was a truck parked in front of my house. A truck from a construction company. And in the entryway, Chloe was talking to two men carrying rolled-up blueprints. I approached them slowly. What's going on here? Chloe turned and looked at me with a mix of defiance and nervousness. It's the contractors, Eleanor. They came to give an estimate for the remodel. The estimate? Without consulting me? Well, Adrian already gave the okay, and Adrian is not the owner of this house, I interrupted, and I looked directly at the two men. Gentlemen, I'm sorry you came all this way, but there will be no remodel. This is my house, and I did not authorize any work. One of the men looked at Chloe, confused. Ma'am, you called us and said it was urgent we come out to measure. I called them, Chloe said, because I live here, and I have a right to improve my home. Your home? I repeated, and I felt the rage rise in my throat like fire. Your home, Chloe? Well, Adrian's home. It's the same thing. I turned back to the contractors. Gentlemen, this house is in my name. Eleanor Lopez. You can check the public record if you like. And I repeat, there is no work authorized here. So I'm asking you to please leave. The men looked at each other, uncomfortable. Then one of them nodded. Understood, ma'am. We're sorry for the misunderstanding. They left. And I stood there, in front of Chloe, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. How dare you, I said. How dare you call contractors to my house without my permission? It's because you don't want to improve anything. Chloe shot back, and now her voice had no sweetness at all. It was pure venom. This house is old, it's ugly, it's outdated, and you won't do anything to fix it, because it's my house. And I like it the way it is. Well, we don't. We're going to live here, so we have a right to an opinion. An opinion? Yes. A decision? No. Because this house is mine, Chloe. Mine. Not yours. Not Adrian's. Mine. But Adrian said you were going to leave it to him. Someday. When I decide to. But that day isn't today. And the way things are going, that day might never come. Chloe looked at me like I had slapped her. She opened her mouth to say something, but just then, Linda arrived. What happened? Why did the truck leave? Because Eleanor kicked them out, Chloe said, her voice trembling. Because she doesn't want us to fix anything. Because she wants us to live in this horrible house forever. Oh, Eleanor, Linda said, approaching with that superior attitude that bothered me so much. We get it. You don't want to cooperate. You don't want to help. You just want to keep everything as it is because you're selfish. Selfish, I repeated. I'm selfish because I don't want you to do whatever you please in my own home. This house should belong to your son, Linda said, and now her voice was hard, with no pretense of kindness. A son you emotionally abandoned for years while you worked all day. A son who needed a mother, but you preferred your career. I froze. How dare she? How dare this woman, who didn't know me, who knew nothing about my life, judge me like that? I worked, I said, my voice shaking, because Adrian's father died and someone had to put food on the table. I worked for 30 years to give him an education, clothes, a roof over his head. I worked to buy this very house. And now you come here, having done nothing, having contributed nothing, and tell me I'm a bad mother? I didn't say you were a bad mother, Linda retorted. I said you abandoned him emotionally. And it's true. That's why Adrian is with us now. Because we take care of him. We make him feel loved. I looked at both of them. At Chloe, her eyes shining with rage. At Linda, with that cruel smile, enjoying every second of my pain. And I understood something very clearly. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about destroying me completely. Get out of my sight, I said in a low voice. Both of you. Now. This is our house too, Chloe insisted. No, it's not. And if you don't get out of my sight right this minute, I will remove you myself. I don't know what they saw in my eyes, but something made them back down. They went into the living room, and I went straight to my room. I locked the door. I sat on the floor and I cried. I cried from rage. I cried from sadness. I cried for my son, who wasn't there to defend me. I cried for all the years I worked alone, sacrificed alone, and fought alone to give him a decent life. And I cried because now, at 70 years old, I had to keep fighting, alone. But after I cried, I wiped my tears. I stood up and grabbed my phone. I dialed Mr. Hayes. Good afternoon, Mrs. Lopez. What can I do for you? I need you to prepare the papers, I said, and my voice was no longer shaking. I want Chloe Torres and Linda Torres out of my house. I have 30 days to notify them, correct? That's correct? Then I want you to prepare a formal legal notification. They have 30 days to vacate my property, and I want you to come and serve it to them personally. Are you sure, Mrs. Lopez? Completely sure. Very well. I'll have the documents ready by Monday. When would you like me to deliver them? Next Sunday. During lunch. I want the whole family to be present. There was a silence on the other end of the line. Understood. I'll be there. I hung up and took a deep breath. It was done. There was no turning back, and for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. The following week was the longest of my life. Every day that passed, I knew what was coming. I knew that Sunday would change everything. And in the meantime, I had to keep living in the same house with Chloe and Linda, pretending everything was normal. They were acting strange, too. Whispering to each other, looking at me sideways, but they no longer spoke to me directly. It was as if they were waiting for me to explode, to yell at them, to leave, but I did none of that. I just stuck to my routine. I went for my walks, went to yoga with Margaret, came home, and locked myself in my room. On Tuesday, Margaret asked if I had spoken to Adrian. No, I haven't spoken to him since the incident with the contractors. And he hasn't come to you? No. He just holes up in his room with Chloe or leaves early for work. I think he's afraid to face the situation. Are you scared about what's going to happen on Sunday? Yes, I admitted, but I'm more scared of staying quiet and letting them walk all over me. Margaret nodded. You're doing the right thing, Eleanor, you'll see. On Thursday, a message from Chloe came through on the family group chat. We had Adrian, her, and me. It was strange because no one had written in it for weeks. Family. I propose we have a special lunch this Sunday. My treat. I want us to have a nice moment all together. I read the message 3 times. A special lunch? Right now? It was too much of a coincidence. Either she was planning something, or she genuinely wanted to make peace. But after everything that had happened, I no longer believed in her good intentions. Adrian replied, Sounds good. What are we having? Chloe, I'm making your favorite, roast chicken with potatoes. And for dessert, the tres leches cake you love. I didn't respond. I just left the message on read. Friday night, as I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone, I heard voices in the living room. It was Chloe, Linda, and Adrian. They were talking loudly, as if they no longer cared if I heard them. Sunday will be perfect, Linda was saying. We'll show her that we are a united family. And if she wants to remain part of this family, she has to cooperate. And if she doesn't cooperate, Adrian asked. Then we'll have to take more drastic measures, Chloe replied. Adrian, you know your mom is getting old. She's stubborn, she's confused. Maybe she needs professional help. Professional help. Were they implying I was crazy? Chloe, don't exaggerate, Adrian said, but his voice sounded weak, unconvinced. I'm not exaggerating. Your mom is behaving irrationally. She won't let us improve the house. She treats us poorly. She makes us feel unwelcome. That's not normal, Adrian. I lay there, frozen, listening. They were building a narrative. They were painting me as the crazy one, the problem, the one who was wrong, and Adrian was listening to them, not defending me. I grabbed my phone and opened the recorder. I turned up the sensitivity and let it record everything, every word, every accusation, every lie. Saturday morning, Chloe and Linda went out to buy the groceries for the Sunday lunch. I used that moment to talk to Adrian. I found him in the living room watching television. Adrian, I need to talk to you. He muted the TV and looked at me, weary. What is it, Mom? I sat across from him and looked him in the eye. My son. My only son. The boy I had raised alone. Why don't you defend me? Adrian looked down. Mom, I don't want to be in the middle of this, but you are in the middle. You live here. You see how they treat me. You hear how they talk to me. And you say nothing. It's just that you don't compromise either, he said, and his voice was full of complaint. Chloe just wants to make improvements to the house. She wants us to live nicely. And you oppose everything. I oppose them making decisions about my house without consulting me. There's a difference. But Mom, you said the house would be mine someday. Someday, Adrian. Not today. Why is that so hard to understand? He fell silent. You know what I think? I continued. I think Chloe has you convinced that I'm the problem. That I'm the one who's wrong. That I'm the one not cooperating. But the truth is, ever since she arrived, everything has changed, and not for the better. Chloe is my wife, Mom. I know. And I want you to be happy with her. But not at the cost of me losing my dignity in my own home. Adrian stood up from the sofa. We're having a family lunch tomorrow. I hope you can come with a better attitude. And he went to his room. I just sat there, alone in the living room. And I understood that my son had already chosen. Not me, them. Sunday arrived. I got up early, took a long shower, put on my favorite brown dress, the one my sister gave me. I did my makeup, fixed my hair, and put on my pearl earrings. I wanted to look good. I wanted to look strong. By noon, Chloe was already in the kitchen preparing the food. Linda was setting the table in the dining room, and Adrian was helping with the drinks. It looked like a normal family scene, but I knew none of it was normal. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, everything was ready. The table was set. The chicken smelled delicious. The tres leches cake was in the fridge, and they were all seated, waiting for me to come down. I walked down the stairs slowly. The three of them looked at me as I entered the dining room. "So glad you decided to join us, Eleanor," Linda said with that fake smile. "Sit down, Mom," Adrian said, pointing to my usual chair. Saturday, Chloe served the chicken. Linda passed the potatoes. Adrian filled the glasses with iced tea, and for a few minutes, we ate in silence. Then Chloe cleared her throat. "Well, family, I invited you to this lunch because I wanted to talk about something important." Here it came, whatever they had planned. "As you know," Chloe continued, "Adrian and I want to start our own family. We want to have children. We want to build our future. And for that, we need stability." I looked at Adrian. His eyes were fixed on his plate. "That's why," Chloe went on, "we've been thinking that the best thing would be for you, Eleanor, to find a place that's more suitable for you. A place where you'll be comfortable, where you won't have to worry about maintaining such a big house. There are some very nice senior living communities, places where you can make friends, have activities, be well cared for. Senior living communities, a nursing home. They wanted to put me in a nursing home." "And what do you think about this, Adrian?" I asked without looking at him. There was a long silence. Then I heard his voice, quiet, almost inaudible. I think it could be a good option, Mom, so you can be more relaxed." I felt something shatter inside me. My own son, my only son, was agreeing to send me to a nursing home to get my house. "I see," I said, and my voice came out calmer than I expected. "So you want me to leave my house so you two can stay here?" "It's not like that, Eleanor," Linda interjected. "It's for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated. "Sending me to a nursing home is for my own good." "It's a community, not a nursing home," Chloe corrected. "And yes, we think you'd be better off there." I nodded slowly. I folded my napkin. I placed it on the table, and I stood up. "Where are you going?" Adrian asked. "To answer the door. Someone is here." "Who?" Just then, the doorbell rang. I walked to the door and opened it. There stood Mr. Hayes, briefcase in hand, a serious expression on his face. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Lopez." "Good afternoon, Mr. Hayes. Please come in." Mr. Hayes entered the house and walked behind me toward the dining room. Chloe, Linda, and Adrian looked at us, confused. The atmosphere changed instantly. There were no more smiles, just tension. "Who is this?" Chloe asked, standing up. "Family," I said, my voice clear. "I'd like to introduce Mr. Hugo Hayes. He is my lawyer." I saw the color drain from Chloe's face. Linda sat frozen in her chair, and Adrian stared at me, wide-eyed, processing what I had just said. "Your lawyer?" Adrian repeated. "Why do you need a lawyer, Mom?" "To protect what's mine," I replied. "Please, everyone sit down. Mr. Hayes has something to deliver to you." No one moved. Mr. Hayes opened his briefcase and took out 3 white envelopes. He placed them on the table. "Good afternoon," he said in a professional tone. "My name is Hugo Hayes, and I am the legal representative of Mrs. Eleanor Lopez. I am here today to deliver an official notification." "Notification of what?" Linda asked, her voice no longer sounding so confident. Mr. Hayes opened the first envelope and began to read. "By means of this letter, notice is hereby given to Mrs. Chloe Torres and Mrs. Linda Torres that they have a period of 30 calendar days, beginning today, to vacate the property located at—" "Wait, what?" Chloe interrupted. "Vacate?" "Allow me to finish," the lawyer continued. The property located at 847 Maple Drive, which is the sole and exclusive property of Mrs. Eleanor Lopez, according to Public Deed number 2456 of the Public Property Registry. Mrs. Lopez, in her right as the owner, has decided to revoke permission for the aforementioned individuals to reside in her home. She can't do that, Linda shouted, jumping up from her chair. My daughter is married to Adrian. This is their house. No, ma'am, Mr. Hayes replied calmly. This house is the property of Mrs. Eleanor Lopez. Your daughter and her husband have lived here by the owner's goodwill, but that goodwill can be revoked at any time. Chloe turned to me, her eyes filled with rage. How could you do this to us? We're your family. Family? I repeated, and I felt my voice break just a little. You wanted to send me to a nursing home to take my house. That's family? But the house was going to be Adrian's, Chloe insisted. Was going to be someday, when I decided. But you couldn't wait. You wanted to kick me out ahead of time. You wanted to erase me from my own life. Adrian was in shock, staring at the papers on the table as if he couldn't believe what was happening. Mom, are you really doing this? Yes, Adrian. I really am. What about me? Are you kicking me out too? I stared at him. My son. The boy I had raised. The man who had disappointed me. That's up to you, I said. Chloe and her mother have 30 days to leave. You can stay if you want, but if you decide to go with them, that is your decision. You can't separate me from my wife, Adrian yelled. I'm not separating you from anyone. I'm giving you a choice. Linda advanced on me, pointing her finger. You are a selfish, bitter, lonely old woman. That's why your husband died to get away from you. I felt the air rush out of my lungs, as if her words were physical blows. But before I could respond, Mr. Hayes stepped in. Ma'am, I strongly advise you to moderate your language. Any threat or verbal assault against my client can and will be used against you if this escalates to a legal proceeding. Legal proceeding? Chloe laughed, but it was a nervous, desperate sound. Eleanor, this is ridiculous. You're not going to take us to court. You don't have the money. You don't have the strength. You underestimate me, I replied. You have always underestimated me. You thought I was a foolish old woman who would let you do whatever you wanted. But you were wrong. Mr. Hayes handed them each an envelope. Here are your notifications. You have 30 days. I recommend you seek legal counsel if you wish, but I'll tell you right now that Mrs. Lopez's documentation is ironclad. This house is legally hers, and she has every right to decide who lives here. Chloe took the envelope with trembling hands. Linda threw hers on the table. This isn't over, Linda sneered. We're going to fight this. We'll prove you're incompetent, Eleanor. That you're not in your right mind. That you need a conservator. Try it, I said, and for the first time in months, I felt powerful. I am 70 years old, but my mind is perfectly clear. My medical exams are up to date. I have witnesses to how you've treated me. I have recordings of your conversations. I have everything I need to prove that you are the ones who are wrong, not me. Linda fell silent. Chloe burst into tears. Adrian, say something, she sobbed, grabbing my son's arm. Don't let your mom do this to us. Adrian looked at me. For the first time in months, he really looked me in the eyes. Mom, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to destroy this family? I'm not destroying it, Adrian. It was already destroyed. From the day you let your wife disrespect me. From the day you said nothing when her mother insulted me. From the day you agreed with the idea of sending me to a nursing home to get my house. I didn't want to send you to a home, Adrian said, but his voice was weak. But you didn't defend me when they suggested it either. You stayed quiet. And that, son, hurts more than any insult. Chloe let go of Adrian's arm and faced me directly. You know what? I'm leaving. I'm leaving this horrible house and this bitter old woman. But I'm taking your son with me. Because he loves me, not you. I stayed silent, waiting. Waiting for Adrian to say something. Waiting for him to defend me, even just this one last time. But he didn't. Adrian, Chloe said, let's go pack. We're leaving today. I'm not staying one more day in this house. Adrian looked at me one last time. I saw pain in his eyes. I saw confusion. I saw fear. But I didn't see courage. I didn't see the strength to do the right thing. I'm sorry, Mom, he said quietly. But she's my wife. I have to go with her. And there it was, the final decision. My son, choosing the woman who had mistreated me over his own mother. All right, I said, and I felt something inside me just close, like a door shutting for good. You're right, she's your wife, and you have to make your choices. Just remember that this was your decision too, not mine. Chloe, Linda, and Adrian went upstairs. I heard them moving through the rooms, dragging suitcases, opening drawers, speaking in low voices. Mr. Hayes put his hand on my shoulder. Are you all right, Mrs. Lopez? Yes, I lied. I'm fine. You did the right thing. Don't let them make you feel guilty. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. If you need anything at all, call me. Here is my card with my personal number. I took the card and put it in my pocket. The lawyer left, and I just stood there, in my dining room, listening to the sounds of my son packing up his life to leave my house. They left that same afternoon. 2 hours after Mr. Hayes left, Adrian came downstairs with 3 large suitcases. Chloe carried 2 duffel bags full of clothes. And Linda was carrying a box of things from the kitchen. My things. The pots she had wanted to donate. That's mine, I said, pointing to the box. Linda looked at me with contempt but dropped the box on the floor. Keep your old junk, she said. We don't need it. Chloe walked past me without a glance. She went straight out to the street, where a taxi was waiting. Linda followed her. And Adrian just stood in the entryway, suitcases in hand. Mom, he said, his voice trembling. You can still stop this. Stop what, Adrian? Stop them from respecting me in my own home? Stop this family from being destroyed? This family was destroyed a long time ago, when you let them treat me like I was worthless. Adrian looked down. I never wanted it to come to this. But you didn't do anything to prevent it either. He stood in silence. Then he picked up the suitcases and walked to the door. I'll be at Chloe's mom's house, he said, without turning to look at me. If you change your mind, call me. If I changed my mind. As if this were my fault. As if I were the one who had done everything wrong. Goodbye, Adrian, I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I felt inside. He paused for a moment in the doorway. I thought he might turn around. I thought he might say something else, but he didn't. He just walked out, got in the taxi, and drove away. I closed the door. I locked it. And I stood there in the entryway of my house, in the most absolute silence I had felt in years. Then I sank onto the sofa and I wept. I wept like I hadn't wept since my husband died. I wept for my son. I wept for the years I wasted trying to be a good mother, a good mother-in-law, a good person. I wept because it hurt. It hurt deep in my soul to know that my only son had. He hadn't chosen me. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe 2, until my phone rang. It was Margaret. Eleanor. How did it go? They're gone, I said, my voice broken. All of them. Adrian, too. Oh, friend. I'm coming over. No, Margaret. I'm okay. I need to be alone. Are you sure? I'm sure, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't okay. I was devastated. Because it's one thing to make the right decision, and another thing entirely to live with the consequences of it. I couldn't sleep that night. I just lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my room, thinking about everything. About how I got here. About whether I had done the right thing. About whether defending my house was worth it if it meant losing my son. The next few days were strange. The house was silent, a silence that scared me at first, and then, slowly, started to feel like peace. I got up when I wanted. I ate breakfast in the kitchen without hearing comments about my food. I sat on my sofa, in my spot, without anyone having moved it. But I'd also sit down to watch television and turn to comment on something to Adrian, and he wasn't there. I'd cook rice and make too much, because I still wasn't used to cooking just for one. And at night, when I went to bed, the weight of the silence felt like a stone on my chest. On Wednesday, I went to yoga with Margaret. She hugged me as soon as she saw me. How are you? Surviving, I said. Has Adrian called? No, and I haven't called him. Do you want to call him? Every day. But I'm not going to. Because if I call him now, he'll think I regret it, and I don't regret it, Margaret. It hurts, but I don't regret it. She nodded. You are so brave, Eleanor. I don't feel brave. I feel alone. But you're still standing. And that's what matters. On Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mrs. Eleanor Lopez? Yes. Who is this? This is Attorney Fernandez. I represent Mrs. Chloe Torres. My client has instructed me to contact you to negotiate the terms of the vacating notice. There's nothing to negotiate, I said. They have 30 days. That's it. Mrs. Lopez, my client is willing to reach an agreement. They are going through a difficult financial time. They need more time to find a suitable place. That is not my problem. Mrs. Lopez, I must remind you that your son was also affected by this decision. Don't you care about the well-being of your own son? I felt the rage rise in my throat. My son made his decision, and now he has to live with the consequences. The 30 days are running. If you need more information, you can speak with my lawyer, Mr. Hayes. Good afternoon. And I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong. For the first time, I felt strong. Saturday morning, during my walk with the group, one of the ladies asked about Adrian. And your son, Eleanor? We haven't seen him in a while. He doesn't live with me anymore, I said simply. Oh, he moved out with his wife? Yes. Well, that's wonderful. It was about time he started his own life. Yes, I repeated, though inside I felt like I was lying to myself. On Sunday, I went to church. I hadn't been in years. But that morning, I felt like I needed to be somewhere I could think, where I could pray, where I could ask someone to tell me everything was going to be okay. I sat in the very back, in an empty pew. The pastor talked about forgiveness, about how forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, about how forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. I left without any answers, but with one clear question. Could I forgive Adrian without allowing him to hurt me again? That afternoon, as I was sitting in my living room reading a book, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found Adrian standing on the porch. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes. Thinner. Hi, Mom, he said quietly. Hello, Adrian. Can I come in? I thought for a second. Then I stepped aside. Come in. We went into the living room and sat down. Him on the big sofa. Me in my favorite armchair, the one Chloe had wanted to get rid of. I came to talk to you, he said. I'm listening. Mom, these past few days I've been thinking. A lot. About everything that happened. About how we got to this point. I waited in silence. And I think I was wrong. I felt something shift in my chest, but I said nothing. Not yet. I was wrong not to defend you, he continued. I was wrong to let Chloe and her mom treat you like that. I was wrong to believe that you were the problem, when the problem was always me, for being a coward, for not wanting to face the situation. Tears started to roll down his cheeks. Forgive me, Mom. Please, forgive me. I looked at him, at my son, the boy I had raised, the man who had disappointed me, and the man who was now in front of me, broken, asking for forgiveness. Adrian, I said slowly, I forgive you. But forgiving you doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. He looked up. What do you mean? I mean that if you want to come back and live here, there are conditions. What conditions? Chloe and her mother never set foot in this house again. Ever. You can come back. But they cannot. Adrian was quiet. And, what if I want to stay with Chloe? That's your decision. But if you stay with her, you don't live here. Mom, she's my wife. I know. And you have to decide what's more important to you. Adrian just stared at me, his eyes full of tears. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it. He got up from the sofa and walked to the window. I can't believe you're making me choose, he said, his voice choked. I'm not making you choose, Adrian. You already chose. Weeks ago, when you let them treat me like trash in my own house. Now I'm just telling you the consequences of that choice. He turned to face me. And, what if I told you I'm going to divorce Chloe? Would you? He was silent. And in that silence, I found my answer. Adrian, I don't want you to make decisions out of obligation. I don't want you to come back here just because you have nowhere else to go. I want you to come back because you truly understand what you did wrong. Because you truly want to change. I do want to change, Mom. Then do it. But do it for you. Not for me. Not for this house. For you. Adrian came over and knelt in front of me. He took my hands in his. Mom, I swear I'm going to fix this. I'm going to talk to Chloe. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to. Adrian, I interrupted. What you do or don't do with Chloe is your business. I've already made my decision. and my decision is to live in peace, with or without you. I said it. I finally said it out loud. And even though it hurt, it also freed me. Adrian let go of my hands and stood up. He wiped his tears on the back of his hand. So, this is how we're going to end? Separated? I don't know, son. That depends on you, on the decisions you make now, on whether you learn from this or if you continue to be the same man who allowed me to be humiliated. He just stood there, not knowing what else to say. Then he nodded slowly and walked to the door. I'll call you, he said before he left. Okay. And he left. Again. But this time was different. This time, I didn't feel like he was leaving for good. I felt like he was leaving to think, to grow, to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. The days kept passing. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Adrian called me every few days. Short conversations. Awkward at first, then a little more natural. How are you, Mom? I'm fine, son. And you? I'm getting by, looking for an apartment. Alone? Silence. Yes, Mom. Alone. I didn't ask any more. It wasn't my place. But something inside me felt relieved. At exactly 4 weeks, Chloe and Linda came by to pick up the last of their things. They came with a small moving truck. I let them in, but I stayed in the living room, watching, not speaking to them, not making it easy for them. Chloe walked past me with a box in her hands. She paused for a moment. I hope you're happy, she said. You destroyed your own family. No, I replied calmly. You tried to destroy mine. I just defended myself. She didn't say anything else. They finished getting their things and left. This time, for good. When I closed the door behind them, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. True peace. Margaret came over that evening. She brought brownies and coffee. How do you feel? She asked, pouring the coffee. Free, I said. I feel free. And Adrian? He's looking for an apartment. I think he's getting a divorce, though he hasn't told me directly. And how do you feel about that? I feel like my son is learning. Late, but he's learning. Margaret smiled. I'm so happy for you, Eleanor. I really am. The weeks turned into months. I painted the house. Not the colors Chloe wanted. The colors I had always wanted. A soft yellow for the living room. A light sage green for my bedroom. I put my pictures where I wanted them. I arranged my plants in every corner. And little by little, the house started to feel like mine again. Adrian came to visit one Saturday morning. He looked different. Thinner, but also calmer, less tense. Hi, Mom. Hi, son. Come on in. We went to the kitchen. I poured him some coffee. We sat at the table. I got divorced, he said, just like that. How do you feel? Relieved. Sad. Confused. All at once. I nodded. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Are you ever going to really forgive me? I looked him in the eye. I already have, Adrian. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means it doesn't hurt as much anymore. It means I can look at you without feeling rage. But it also means I learned how to protect myself. And that's not going to change. I understand, he said. And I saw in his eyes that he really did. Did you find an apartment? Yeah. It's small, but it's good. It's close by. I was thinking. Maybe I could come visit more often. I'd like that. And that's how we started over. Not like before. Never like before. But we started. With respect, with boundaries, with truth. Today, 6 months after all of it, I get up early. I make my coffee. I sit in my living room, in my favorite armchair, with my house in silence, and I smile. Margaret and I still go to yoga on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The walking group still expects me on Saturdays, and on Sundays sometimes, Adrian comes for lunch. He brings dessert. I cook his favorite dish. And we talk about his work, about his new life, about his plans. We don't talk about Chloe. We don't talk about what happened. We don't need to anymore. Last week, my sister from San Diego came to visit. We took pictures in the living room with the house full of light and flowers. I uploaded the photos to Facebook, and I felt proud. Proud of my house. Proud of my life. Proud that I stood up for myself. This morning, while I was drinking coffee on the patio, I thought about the long road I'd traveled, about how I was on the verge of losing everything. My house, my dignity, my peace. But I didn't lose it. Because I learned something fundamental, that sometimes defending what is yours means being willing to end up alone. It means being brave when everyone expects you to be weak. It means saying no when your whole life you've said yes. And even though it hurt, even though there were nights of tears and days of loneliness, even though I had to confront my own son, it was worth it. Because now, when I wake up every morning in my house, in my bed, in my space, I feel something I haven't felt in years. I feel like I am the owner of my life. Not just my house, my entire life. And that, after 70 years, after raising a son alone, after working for 30 years, after putting up with everything I put up with, that is the most valuable thing I have. Yesterday, Margaret asked me if I missed having someone living with me. Sometimes, I told her honestly, but I would rather be alone and at peace than accompanied and destroyed. She nodded. Because she understands, too. Because we are both women who learned that being alone is not the same as being empty. That being alone can sometimes be the most profound way of being whole. This afternoon I'm going to the salon. I'm going to get my hair cut. A little shorter than before, more modern. And then Margaret and I are going to walk in the new park that opened nearby. And tonight, when I get back to my house, I'm going to lock the door. I'm going to make my chamomile tea. I'm going to sit in my living room, and I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to smile. Because finally, after so many years of taking care of everyone, sacrificing for everyone, living for everyone, I'm finally the one who decides. I decide who I let into my house. I decide who I let into my life. I decide how I want to live my years. And that freedom, that peace, that power over my own existence, nobody can take that away from me, ever again.